Hey guys, it's me, Mr. 250, and welcome back to Healthily Snoring Young People. Let's continue. There were 4 children, and Maria was there, sleeping soundly. After feeling relieved, she entered the room with quiet footsteps. She was after Maria's handbag, which was resting on the sofa. Maria always liked walking around with her treasures. She was probably imitating how her mother always carried makeup with her. Of course, she was just copying her, so on the inside it was full of junk. In Maria's case, it was full of small, creepy occult-like items, and a notebook with things like that written on it. Rosa hadn't been happy once to see her daughter walking around with these kind of things, which were not girlish. However, after she tried to force Maria to stop, they had gotten into a big fight and she had to let it be. A Western envelope with the crest of the gold eagle. When she tried to take it out, she realized that there was a heavy cylindrical object inside. She could tell its feel and its weight. There was no doubt. It was a key. After turning around and checking that Maria was still sound asleep, Rosa tore open the envelope, and the contents spilled out into her palm. It was a key with an old and intricate design. Rosa grasped that key and dashed out. It seemed that Battler noticed that sound, but after grumbling and turning over in his sleep, he started snoring again. I think Maria's gonna be mad later, but we'll worry about that later.
Genji-san, この鍵、ひょっとして礼拝堂の鍵ということは。
これをどこで？はい、これが礼拝堂の鍵です。
Rosa approached the creepy magic circle once again, and put the key in the keyhole. There was a strong resistance. After it resisted for a short while, it stopped, resisting with a clunk. Then, squeaking with a noise that hurt one's ears, it slowly began to open. Preferably alive? Her voice reverberated throughout the massive room. Of course, there was no answer. The chapel had a high ceiling, and the air was cold. And even on this rainy, unsettling day, for some reason it felt sacred. The servants timidly followed after Rosa.
Rosa-sama,
Canon noticed it immediately and pointed. Over there was the altar. In a place where a pastor would normally preach of God's love, there was a table that shouldn't have been there. At first, it looked like a dining table. There were actually gorgeous plates and utensils set on the table, enough to make you think it was a child's birthday party, or a Halloween party. Upon closer inspection, the surrounding area had been decorated with pumpkins and black and orange ribbons. They were probably Halloween decorations. And there were people seated at the table, dead ones? 3 people on each side facing each other, seated in chairs. They could be recognized at a glance. Cross and his wife, Eva and her husband, and Rudolph and his wife. But if someone told you that, you'd still have to go closer and even check. Because they seemed almost like dolls. Rosa and the rest had opened the door, entered all at once with the sound of many footsteps, and called out, asking if anyone was there. And yet, there had been no reaction. Even if Rosa and the rest assumed that they were being ignored, normally you'd expect there to be some kind of reaction. And there hadn't even been that. So at first, it felt like someone had set down some dolls that looked a lot like them. By now, it wasn't just Rosa. Shannon and Cannon, and even Goda. They were all frantically fighting with a creepy emotion that grasped their hearts.
兄さん、Aさん。
As she climbed up to the altar, she called out again, but still, the others gave no reaction. Yes, by now Rosa had accepted it. They were not dolls. She accepted that they were those very people.
これは。
They neared the distance at which they would be able to clearly see what was on the table. Just like their first impression, it looked like a lovely banquet, reminiscent of a child's birthday party. Plates piled up with sweets, glasses with lovely drinks, several ornaments in the shape of pumpkins. They were all decorated in a Halloween style, and while it might have been pointless to imagine at a time like this, she thought that this would surely have made Maria happy if she could see it. In front of that table they were seated, and it looked like they were sleeping. It was an eerie scene, as though a small fun-looking Halloween party had been stopped in time.
兄さんたち、寝てるの？
I'm pretty sure they're not sleeping. When she approached even closer to them, she realized that candies were scattered all over the floor. They were all candies, cookies, sodas, and chocolates, with very fantasy-styled wrappings. And they were all distributed across the carpet, which was covered in blackberry and cranberry jam. That's not jam, yeah, they dead. They extremely dead. Ooh. Ooh, I like this scene here. This is a really cool picture. I like this. Rosa and the rest finally realized what the situation was. Ooh, I like this. It was a Halloween party. A banquet for those not of this world. Cross, Natsui, Eva, Hideyoshi, Rudolph, Kyrie, 6 people in all, were seated in the chairs, dead as though they were sleeping. I thought about reading them, but I'm pretty sure the game is gonna tell us exactly what happened to these people, and we'll read the descriptions afterwards. How could you tell that they were dead and not simply sleeping? That was because they were vertically sliced open from their chest to their stomachs. Wow. It's pretty gruesome. The 6 of them were seated at a Halloween party. All of them with their stomachs sliced open. All of them had been killed. Was the jam that covered the floor something that they couldn't finish eating, which had overflowed out of their stomachs? No. The contents of their stomachs had been thrown out across the floor. And that wasn't all. From their stomachs, almost as though they had poured out sweets. Candies and cookies, sodas and chocolates had poured out, stained with blood, and had scattered across the floor. What could have happened to cause this? It was almost as though the insides of their stomachs had been stuffed full of sweets, and when their stomachs had been cut, it had all flowed out. Rosa remembered a shocking meal, a turkey that had been served at her own birthday. When it had been cut with a knife, from the inside, things she loved, but what she had not heard about at all. Bright red ketchup omelet rice had poured out like blood-stained maggots. Dripping, slimy, pulpy, sticky. That is an imaginative way to explain that. The trauma of her youth was revived. Rosa felt a monster raging inside of her stomach as the acid started to rise up. Unable to hold back, she threw up on the floor. Her empty stomach couldn't throw up anything but stomach acid. This scene in front of her was no longer a fun Halloween party. The 3 couples had been placed there, with their stomachs vertically wrenched open with a Many sweets had been stuffed in there, pulpy, squishy. Blood and guts and sweets were overflowing onto the floor. Bloodstained, sticky, sloppy, pulpy, sweet candy stuck to each finger. Gummy, but it's stained with their entrails. Sloppy, pulpy. What was that I just stepped on now? That didn't feel like a candy or a cookie or a soda or a chocolate. I'm scared. What did I step on? I can't even look at the bottom of my foot. What a gruesome Halloween party. From far away, it looked really beautiful, fantastical, and fun. And when you see it up close, it's really terrible, disgusting, and yet somehow beautiful. Rose's wild thoughts tried as best as they could to escape her throat with a loud voice that was neither a scream nor a roar. I'm pretty sure an ambulance is going to help them right now. If a word tied to reality, like police, hadn't come out of Goda's mouth, Rosa and the rest would probably still be unable to escape this nightmarish party. But that wasn't because they thought that the police might be able to do something. If they didn't say police out loud, it seemed that another seat would be set up at this demon's party and given to them. It felt like their own stomachs were getting uncomfortably filled from the inside. Rumbling, churning. It was surely because candy was starting to overflow from their stomachs. Rosa was again tortured by a desire to vomit, and threw up her stomach acid on the floor. And then she searched, to see whether there was any candy mixed in. Rosa coughed violently again, and violently spat up the stomach acid that burned her throat. She realized that by now, her whole body had been covered in filthy sweat. Why even bring Dr. Nanjo here? It's way too late for medical care. But yet, people still feel better when a medical professional comes around. The servants accepted their orders and dashed outside. After watching them leave, Rosa once again fixedly cast her eyes upon those fantastical deaths of her siblings, and their partners with a mixture of pleasure and pain. Even though there could be nothing more tragic, for some reason, she wanted to describe it as beautiful. I liked that music. Wasn't as good as some of the other stuff, but it wasn't bad. Definitely fit the chapel theme. That was pretty cool. And now we can take a look at their descriptions. I think it fits a lot better. So, let's see what the adults got going. His corpse is found in the chapel. The direct cause of death is unknown, but it seems his stomach was cut open and his intestines were pulled out after his death. On top of that, sweets and candies were packed into his stomach. Welcome, Maria. Happy Halloween. Best Halloween. Her corpse is found in the chapel. The direct cause of death is unknown. Same thing. Didn't I tell you that her stomach would be filled with candy? Did we? Again, maybe that was a private conversation. All stomachs are filled with sweet dreams. What's so filthy about the inside of a stomach? This is why we want to be as sweet and innocent as candy. And so, I give you the land of dreams. Happy Halloween.
どこに行っちまったんだろうな。
使用人室も厨房も空っぽだぜ。一体どうしちまったってんだ。
No, she's kind of mad about that. Yeah, I forgot.
弱ったね、バトラ君。本当にローザおばさんだったのかい？
まあ、俺も寝ぼけてたから、明け方にローザおばさんが入ってきて、マリアの手提げカバンを漁ってるような気がしたんだよ。俺はてっきり、マリアの手提げに、歯磨きのチューブでも入ってるんじゃないかなんて思って、寝ぼけてて。
なんで歯磨きのチューブが
That's what I was about to say. Marie doesn't really keep toothpaste in there. She keeps weird occult
寝
things.
ぼけて夢でも見たに決まってんぜ。
Battler vaguely remembered Rosa entering the cousin's room. And Maria, who had woken up first, had started rampaging around, saying that someone had opened an envelope that she had been keeping safe. And then they had decided that Rosa had come and opened the envelope.
黄金の魔女様の封筒か。中に何が入ってたんだろ
う。わからないね。でも、あの封筒は、おじい様が新書に使う、後ろ宮家の家紋の入ったものだった。親族会議と無関係なものが入っていたとは考えがたいね。
She hadn't let anyone else touch it, but yesterday, Maria had bragged a lot about the envelope to Battler and the rest. So they remembered it well.
ジョージの兄貴の言う通りなら、相当重要なものらしいが。しかし、そんな大事なものを、どうして魔女様はマリアに渡したんだろうな。さっぱりだぜ。
Every once in a while, the refreshing morning atmosphere was completely wiped out by the sound of thunder. It was only natural. Since the time that they had woken up, they hadn't met anyone else other than themselves. It felt like they were only left and the mansion had become an empty husk.
おーい、誰かいないか？返事してくれよ。
After Jessica called out into the hallway, eventually an answer came back. It was from the entrance hall.
聞こえますとも。何かありましたか？
南條先生だ。よかった。この島から僕たち以外が消えてしまったわけではないようだよ。
南條先生、おはようございます。すみませんが、うちの親たちとかどこに行ったか知りませんか？
はて、私も今起きてこちらに来たばかりですからな。わかりかねますが、さて。
It was only natural. Nanjo was a guest like the rest of them. He had just now come to pass the time in the parlor until breakfast.
南條先生、ママが取った。ママがマリアのお手紙取ったの。返して、返して。
Maria buried her face in Nanjo's well-built stomach, sobbing and crying. Nanjo could do nothing but be bewildered at what was going on so early in the morning.
誰かかけてくるぞ。ジェシカ、誰か来るぞ。
From down the hall, they could sense people running hurriedly. When they looked, they saw that it was Goda and Cannon. Running inside the mansion should have been immodest for a servant. And yet, Battler and the rest didn't even think to question that now. Maria's sobbing had become so unmanageable, they wanted to ask someone, anyone, where Rosa was. But the two servants ignored Jessica as she waved her hand. Goda flew into the servant room, and after Cannon noticed that Nanjo was there, he bowed and approached Nanjo at a quick pace, whispering something into his ear.
何ですって？ローザさんが。
はい、ご案内いたしますので、どうかご同行お願いいたします。
わかりました。
こちらへ。
Without saying anything more than that, Cannon finally noticed Jessica and bowed to her. But he wasn't calm. He dashed back down the corridor by which he had come, followed by Nanjo. By looking at how hurriedly they were, Battler and the rest realized that, yes, something bad really had happened. They saw Goda through the door to the servants' room, which had been flung open. He was holding the receiver and violently pressing the hook. From that, they realized that he was trying to call a hospital or the police. In any event, he was trying to call someone because a serious emergency had occurred.
行ってみようぜ。
They didn't know what, but something was happening. Battler and the rest chased after Cannon and Nanjo. Then we realized Cannon-kun had called Dr. Nanjo, but he hadn't called us. So, we shouldn't have gone with them. I wonder if Alice didn't regret her excess curiosity when she chased after the rabbit holding a clock. So the kid's gonna see it now? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, this ain't good. This is bad stuff.
ダメよ。入ってダメ。見ちゃダメ。ジェシカちゃん、ダメ。
母さん、父さん、何があったの？
なんだよこりゃ。趣味が悪いにも程があるじゃねえかよ。命を奪うならなんだよこりゃ。わざわざ殺した後に椅子に座らせて腹裂いて菓子をわざわざ中に詰め込んだってのかよ。
Battler likes to pull the stuff apart way too much sometimes.
なんだってそんな悪趣味なことをしやがるんだよ。チキショーやってくれやがるぜ。最高だよ。
皆さんは外へ出られた方がいい。こんな姿を皆さんに見せたいなどと彼らが思うわけがありません。
Nanjo told the children to go outside, but no one listened.
ローザさん、皆さんに言ってください。こんなもの見続けては毒になる。
Rosa regretted her own rashness. She should have realized that the children would eventually come here. She should have quickly locked it instead of standing around. So the children had come. They had seen it. Surely, in this very moment, they were having a sight burned into their eyes, which was far more grotesque than the shocking meal Rosa had seen in her youth. While she hugged Maria as though she had forgotten her shock at the horrible scene, Rosa cried for them and their parents. The four groaning and crying voices, their sadness, continued to echo in a place which should have known God's love.
クソ野郎がまたかよ。またこんな殺人を。しかも今度もやたらと凝った最高にふざけた殺し方をしやがって。
Oh, I'm really liking this. I really love it when they pull the other battler back.
わらわはそんな嘆きより感謝の言葉が聞きたかったぞ。
感謝と言ったがこのクソババア。てめえ耳がいかれてやがるってんなら俺が両の耳を引き裂いてよく聞こえるようにしてやるぜ。なんで俺がこの最高にいかれた殺し方にありがとうございますベアトリーチェ様なんて言わなければならねえんだ。ぶっ殺してやる。
前回のゲーム、
Oh gosh, no, the eyes.
お前は自分の親の死に顔が見られないと嘆いたな。
Spooky
だから
eyes.
残したぞ。しっかり残した。よく拝んでおけ。間違いなく父親たちが殺されたことを。
そうかよ。そいつはサービス満点だぜ。気に入った。
感情に任せて
No,
思考を止め
no, stop it with the eyes. It's spooky.
すでにわらわのゲームは始まっておるのだぞ。わらわは今回はきれいに死体を残すことに決めた。なぜだかわかるか？前回のゲームでそなたがわらわの存在を否定するとき、こう考えて否定したである。顔面が潰され遺体の身元が確認できる。だから身代わりの死体を用意してアリバイを作った可能性が否定できない。その可能性が排除できない限り人間犯人説は維持できる。
なんだと？
さあバトラ、南條に検視を任せてよいのか？ミステリーの古典では検視の医者がグルというのが伝統なのだろう。なら南條に検視を任せるならそなたが自らするがよい。間違いなく6人の死体が当人で死んだふりなどでなく本当に死んでいることを十分に確認するがいい。お前の父親が母親が腹を裂かれて臓物を引きずり出されて殺されていることを腹に手を入れてその手触りで確認するがいい。
Oh, the eyes spooky. The eyes are spooky. Battler suddenly yelled. His tears were still dripping down, but as though scolding himself for being girly, he slapped his face hard several times with both hands. Even so, the tears still wouldn't stop. However, he felt a hot blaze on both of his eyes.
これだけの都合を決めやがった野郎に借りはがっちり返させていただくぜ。なら泣く時じゃねえ。自分のすべきことを考えろ。ああ、ダメだぜ、全然ダメだ。涙を流す暇があったら考えろ。涙腺なんかひるませる時じゃねえ。
Rather than genuine hatred. Maybe it was more of an evasive hatred to blot out his sadness. It probably is, honestly. However, it gave a little courage to George and Jessica, who had been crushed by sadness.
そうだね。僕たちが泣いて怒ってしまった現実は変わらない。
じゃあどうすりゃいいんだ。私は父さんと母さんのために何をすればいいんだよ。
ローザ様、戻りました。
合田さん、警察はどうでしたか？対応の指示はいつ頃来られそうだと言っていましたか？
それが電話が故障のようでして。
Oh no!
非常用の無線機も試してはみたのですが、その天候のせいでしょうか、こちらも通じず。
なんですって。じゃあ警察に連絡がつかないということなの？あいつだ。あいつが電話線とかに細工して警察に電話ができないようにしたんだ。
When she heard that the phones had broken down, Jessica immediately decided that it was the work of that mysterious guest. Her eyes were bright red after so much crying, and they began to grow even more red with rage.
もう議論の余地なんかねえぜ。全てが分かってる。そうだと分かる。父さんと母さんを殺したのは誰だ？決まってるぜ、あいつだ。昨日来たとかいう魔女様に決まってる。襟首ひねり上げてやるぜ。チクショーチクショーチクショー。ジェシカちゃん、お待ちなさい。合田さん、カノ君、行って。
はい。お嬢様、お待ちを。
Covering her sadness that had nowhere to go with anger, Jessica ran outside, torn apart by emotion. Thinking about it hastily, maybe the mystery guest, Beatrice, who had arrived yesterday, was suspicious. However, at the current time, there was absolutely no proof that she was the culprit. At this moment, she was nothing more than a simple guest. So Rosa made an adult decision, and had to stop Jessica on her hasty rampage. Goda and Cannon realized that immediately and chased after her.
誰にも招かれなかった客人、ベアトリーチェが犯人なんだろうか。
ジェシカの気持ちもわかる。そう思い込みたい気持ちは誰でもいいから犯人ってことにして横っ面をぶっ飛ばしてやりたい気持ちがある。だがその前にはっきりと理解する必要がある。ベアトリーチェって何者だ。俺は顔すら見てねえぜ。
No, Maria, go back to crying.
顔ならお屋敷に大きな肖像画で飾られてたよ。
You were doing better when you were crying earlier, Maria.
あれだけ見てまだ覚えられないのかな。
なんだよマリア、こんな状況で何がおかしいよ。
ベアトリーチェは魔女なんだよ。そして黄金鏡の扉を開くための儀式がいよいよ始まったの。この6人はその生贄なんだよ。さあさあ始まるよ、魔女の宴が。
マリア、その気持ち悪い声で笑うのをやめなさいっていつも言ってるでしょ。
The crisp sound of Rose slapping Maria's cheek echoed through the high-ceilinged chapel. It kind of felt like, since it had started raining yesterday, no, since the island had been wrapped up in the typhoon, something had gone crazy. I had arrived in Rokenjima while it was clear and taken a nap because I had gotten up early. When I woke up, it had already started raining. And since that time, suddenly, a mysterious visitor had arrived, calling herself the Golden Witch Beatrice, and it felt like I was sinking bit by bit into an insane world. Had something happened while I was asleep? During that time, had this island been cut off, trapped in a different world where common sense didn't apply? Who is this person called Beatrice? Was some unknown person trying to involve themselves in the inheritance problem? Like our parents were freaking out about dinner last night? Or was this witch from the legend of the Golden Culprit? The legend of the Culprit, like Maria said. Even if Jessica hadn't let her short temper get the better of her, in this situation, the visitor probably was the most suspicious. However, we couldn't decide just like that. It's useless, it's all useless. I smacked my face with both hands again, cooling off my brains before they got too hot. Even though it might have been a wasted effort.
これはおじい様の封筒。
On a tray piled up with sweets that decorated the table, George Aniki found a Western envelope which had the Urshiramiya family crest done on it with gold leaf. And it was unopened.
ってこと、それは俺たち宛てってことじゃねえのか。親父たちが読んだものだったなら開封されてるはずだぜ。
その推理は正解のようだよ。書いてある。残されし者たちへって書いてあるよ。
それは犯人が残した手紙なの。中身。
兄貴、開けようぜ。
After nodding silently, George Aniki opened it. A folded letter came out.
読むよ。六軒島へようこそ。後ろ宮家の皆様方。私は金蔵様にお仕えしております当家顧問錬金術師のベアトリーチェと申します。
That letter really was a joke. This Beatrice, who called herself the family alchemist, had announced that she was collecting the gold she had lent grandfather, along with the interest. And we got something in here. Oh, okay, that's just the rest of the letter. And that interest was everything that grandfather had created. Since this tragedy was right before our eyes as this paragraph was read aloud, it clearly wasn't referring just to the wealth that grandfather had built up. It was literal. Everything that grandfather had created. In other words, All of Grandfather's descendants were included in the interest.
ふざけやがって。なんてめちゃくちゃな契約だ。黄金の利子は命だってのかよ。そんなのまるで悪魔の契約じゃねえかよ。
Hey, that sounds pretty right, doesn't it?
それで魔女気取りってわけか。笑わせやがるぜ。
特別条項。ただし、隠された契約の黄金を暴いた者が現れた時、黄金の隠し場所については、すでに金蔵様が私の肖像画の下に碑文にて公示されております。つまりこういうことでね、もしこの殺人が利子の回収行為だというなら、それを止める条件としておじい様に与えた隠し黄金を探し出してみろと。そしてその秘密は例の肖像画の碑文に隠されているとも言ってる。
つまりこいつは魔女様の挑戦状ってわけか。黄金の隠し場所を記した暗号文を解けるものなら解いてみろと。そしてそれができなきゃ利子の回収をこの後も着々と進めていきますと、そう言ってやがるわけか。ぶっ殺してやる上等だ。
バトラ君、これ
The table had been full of sweets. So even though it had been right in the open, we assumed it was a sweet. I mean, come on. You find stuff like this a lot, right? Oh, hey. Come on, it might have been a box shaped like a gold ingot, filled with chocolate.
こりゃお菓子の箱じゃねえぞ。本物だ。こりゃ本物の金塊だ。
片翼のわしの紋章が刻印されてる。前に母さんが話してたのを聞いた。これはおじい様の黄金伝説の金塊だよ。
A gold ingot weighing a full 10 kilograms. Wait, 3 of them were piled up in the very center of the table. It was where a cake would be placed if it was a birthday party. In other words, this is without a doubt the birthday cake of the party known as the family conference.
これが本当に純度49のインゴットだったなら、6000万円くらいの価値はある。
バカ安すぎる。俺たちの親が6人も殺されて、そこに積まれた黄金がたったの6000万円だと。バカにするんじゃね
さあ始まったね、ベアトリーチェ。どうせこの謎は誰にも解けないのよ。だから絶対にベアトの勝ち。早く黄金鏡への扉を開いて、そしてマリアを連れてって。
Ooh, it's exciting every time, isn't it? Ooh, just gotta kind of like chill out now.
どうか気をお静めください。
Yep, I know you got things to say, so let's see what the letter actually said. More or less the same thing. Yeah, I think that all says the exact same thing as before. Yeah. Alright, we're gonna stop there for today. That was fun. Like I said, like I've said before, while the intro to these, both of them that we've done so far are... There's not a way around it, they're rather boring. They are interesting in some regard, but as a general whole they are rather boring. It does get made up for afterwards. And hopefully this second section will do exactly the same thing in that regard. I'm imagining it will. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for more Umineko. Bye!